Welcome to the Crop Insurance Podcast, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of crop insurance. I'm your host, Mike Rydell, a third-generation crop insurance agent, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this educational journey. At our family-owned and operated business, we've been providing crop insurance expertise for generations. Our goal here is simple, to educate our listeners. Crop insurance can be complex and overwhelming, but I believe that understanding it is crucial for every farmer. So whether you're a seasoned farmer looking to stay updated or a newcomer seeking guidance, this podcast is for you. Let's take a moment to thank some of our sponsors of the Crop Insurance Podcast. Our title sponsor, McNeil Insurance Agency, are probably your greatest insurance agents ever. They specialize in federal crop insurance and have since 1979. To visit their website, go to www.greatestagencyever.com. The McNeil Insurance Agency is a proud partner with the Crop West Insurance Group. Welcome to a new episode of the Crop Insurance Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Rydell. Today we're going to be talking about master yields and how they affect your crop insurance policy. Before we get started, let's check in with what the definition of a master yield is from our friends over at RMA.
Master yields are based on acreage and production history from all acreage of the insured crop in the county in which you have a share in the crop's production on the same basis as your approved yield. When applicable, your master yield will be your approved yield as authorized by approved FCIC procedures.
In other words, a master yield is going to take all of your production history, is going to combine it into one APH database and determine your approved yield, and then take that approved yield and apply it across all of your different units and APH databases. That's a very high level of what a master yield does. Now we'll dive in a little bit deeper and get more specific as to what a master yield is all about. When we say we're combining all of your production history, it's going to look at all of the production history in that county for that particular crop, type, practice, and map area, and it's going to lump all of that production into the one database. So if you have multiple map areas, there would be 2 master yields. And if you have multiple crops, each crop is specific in terms of having its own master yield database. Now, like the rest of federal crop, there are several rules or guidelines you have to comply with or follow in order to get a master yield. The first one that you need to pay attention to is that you need to have a minimum of 4 years of actual history. So if you're just getting started seeding a new crop in a county, you're going to use that new producer status, which we've talked about in previous episodes, versus a master yield, because you do have to have that 4 years of history. Now, once you do have 4 years of history, you can apply for a master yield. The deadline to apply for a master yield is going to be the production reporting deadline for that crop. So if it's a spring crop, it'll be a different production reporting deadline than, say, a fall crop. So you want to check your county actuarials in order to find out when that deadline is. The other thing that's kind of unique about a master yield is when we say your production, what we mean by that is it all boils down to who the operator is. And the operator's history can come from multiple entities to combine on that one policy or the multiple policies for the master yield. And so let's look at what the definition of an operator is.
An operator is the individual with the largest insurable interest in the crop. If 2 or more individuals share equally and make management decisions equally, both will be considered operators. All operator history will be combined for the master yield.
When it comes to defining the operator or the operator status, this is where master yields get very tricky and very cumbersome. If you speak with any crop insurance company underwriter, they will tell you that master yields are difficult because you have to take a lot of things into account when figuring out who the operator is. Then you have to do your due diligence to find all of the operator's history for that crop in that county, because when you apply for a master yield, you have to use all of the operator's history. You can't pick and choose history that's good on one policy and not good on another, you can't just use the good history. You have to use all of the operator's history. And so the agent and the crop insurance company have to do some research to make sure that they have all of that history available to them when applying for a master yield. We'll go into a little more detail on the operator history and how that all works a little later on. But this is where the biggest pain point is when doing a master yield, is the operator status and getting all of their history. Let's assume that we have all the history available to us and we've defined the operator correctly. They have a minimum of 4 years of production history. We're applying for this prior to the production reporting deadline. So everything's good so far. Taking one step back, you need to understand that you have to be in a buy-up program in order to qualify for a master yield. You cannot be in a catastrophe coverage program and get a master yield. It has to be a buy-up level. The other thing is if you have acreage that's emerging from a USDA program such as CRP, new break acreage, it's that initial year, or native sod, they're not going to be included in that master yield. They're going to have their own APH database, their own approved yields. They wouldn't get that master yield. Acreage that's transitioning to organic when you don't have an organic plan or a written documentation from an organic certifying agent, again, not going to get the master yield. They're going to be on their own in terms of getting their own approved yields in their own unit. Again, your unit structure is going to follow whatever the crop insurance policy unit structure is. This is not changing the unit structure. It's just changing what your approved yield is for each unit. In other words, it overrides the unit's approved yield or your APH database's approved yield. It'll override that when factoring out your coverage, and it'll plug in the master yield's approved yield in determining what your coverage and guarantees is going to be. When you look at your policy, you're still going to see all of your individual APH databases and what their normal approved yield would be. And then there'll be another line that says what your master yield's going to be. So you're not going to lose any of your history. It's just overriding it for determining coverage. Utilizing a master yield can be an effective way to manage your risk. You need to take a look at what your master yield will be and compare it to all of your individual units' approved yields to make sure that it's not adversely affecting you. There is a lot of legwork involved in setting up a master yield, and most of it boils down to determining who the operator is and then getting all of the relevant operator history. Because again, you have to use all of your history for the operator in that county. You can't pick and choose which policies to include that history for. Make sure that you're having an open conversation with your crop insurance agent when looking at diving into the master yield program, because you do need to take all of your history or all of the operator's history into account, and gathering all of that data can be a bit cumbersome and confusing when you get into different situations with entity setup and defining who the operator is. If you head over to our website at thecropinsurancepodcast.com, you'll find an article all about master yields. In that article, we reference an RMA presentation where they do an excellent job of discussing what an operator is. They define the operator and give you examples of when you can use the history, when you can't use the history, and they give you several examples of different entity setups that help to clarify this process. At the end of the day, the Master Yield program is a great tool to use on your crop insurance policy. However, it is one of those tools where you need to rely on your crop insurance agent's expertise and experience in order to walk you through all the different scenarios and how it will affect your policy. From my family to yours, thank you very much for listening. I sincerely hope that this presentation has been instrumental in enhancing your understanding of federal crop insurance. If you find value in our podcast, we kindly encourage you to subscribe and spread the word among your friends and neighbors. To access further information, please visit our website at thecropinsurancepodcast.com, where you'll find the latest podcast episodes, articles, and exciting new features conveniently located in one place. This information is not all-inclusive and is meant to be used only as general guidelines for educational purposes. For additional information, please see crop provisions, reference the Crop Insurance Handbook or Loss Adjustment Manual, or contact your crop insurance agent. This institution is an equal opportunity provider and employer.